Call the meeting to order. We all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if the clerk could call roll.
Trustee Narodowski.
Present.
Trustee Keenley.
Present.
Trustee Wotecki.
Present.
Trustee Dante.
Present.
Supervisor Bussie.
Present. Okay, public comment. Have anyone for public comment here? No? Okay. Consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, or are there any questions on that before we do? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Once again, any discussion? None? Okay, do I have let's do a roll call.
Trustee Narodowski.
Aye.
Trustee Keenley.
Aye.
Trustee Wotecki.
Aye.
Trustee Dante.
Aye.
Supervisor Bussie.
Aye. All right, then we have the minutes to approve. This is for the July 26th public hearing and for the July 26th regular board meeting. We can approve them individually or both together. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Make the motion and approve both of them.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion, any questions?
Nope.
Okay, if not, then if we have a voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. All right, we go to presentations. We have Dan Creaney Company here. Creaney Company, if we can have our esteemed
Thank you, Supervisor Bussie. My name is Mark Toll. I'm with Daniel Creaney Company. We're an engineering company that has worked in the residential, the commercial, industrial, and municipal sectors since 1976. I have a presentation, a number of items going through the sanitary sewer system that we have worked with since the 1990s. I know that was in your packet. I'd like to go through this pretty expeditiously for you. I know there's a lot of information here. If anybody has any questions, feel free to stop me, or I'll be happy to answer them at the end. I've worked with Elk Grove Township since 2004. Daniel Creaney has worked with Elk Grove Township since the 1990s. We started off working in the sanitary sewer system program that the MWRD instituted with an ICAP program, which was to reduce infiltration of stormwater and clear water into the sewer system so their systems wouldn't be overtaxed, and then they would ultimately have to release untreated waters to rivers, streams, and to Lake Michigan. So I have a number of slides in here that pertain to MWRD information. I'm not going to go into grave detail in it, but we do have that information available if anybody has further questions on it. Summarizing the township sanitary sewer system, the township has ordinances dating back to 1972 that are the enabling legislation to maintain and manage the township sewer system. The township owns approximately 5.6 miles of sanitary sewer. This sewer ranges in size from 8-inch to 12-inch diameter, PVC pipe, old clay pipe. A lot of the original system was old clay pipe that we've been upgrading with sewer linings throughout the years. There's 141 sanitary manholes that have been inspected throughout the years, inspected several times. We've done repairs to them. We've had some of them even replaced. Township sewer system is located about a third of it in Arlington Heights, about almost another third of it in the village of Mount Prospect, small portion in Elk Grove Village, and 27% there, as you see, in unincorporated areas throughout the township. The sewer system is funded through user fees. It's not a taxed entity. The long-term operation and maintenance program includes sewer televising of the entire system, manhole inspections performed, Township has performed CIPP lining, which is a sewer liner that is put through the sewers. It's a way to upgrade your sewer system without having to excavate and replace the sewer system. It is a fabric that's impregnated with an epoxy type substance that's then activated, and it creates essentially a new pipe within the pipe at a very small thickness, and it enables the township to use their 50-year-old sewers that are clay, and they can be used likely for another 50 years without any significant maintenance. This also helps to reduce the infiltration, which is something the MWRD is interested in, the IEPA is interested, because you're tightening up that system. You're not allowing clean water to go into the joints, into any breaks that are in the sewer or any cracks. We put together a program about 10 years ago that prioritized all of our sewer system to be able to run through the linings. We've done all the high priority areas, and now we're in a preventative maintenance program. So just briefly going through, in the 1990s, MWRD came up with that ICAP program that I had mentioned. During that process, all your sewers were analyzed, flow monitoring was performed, and the MWRD required the program to include a reduction of II where possible. So repairs were made at the time, end of the 90s, early 2000, on the system, and it was a cost-effective based program. So you didn't have to spend millions of dollars replacing your sewers, but they wanted you to repair what the worst areas were that you could cost-effectively replace. From there, it went into a long-term operation and maintenance program, televising again, manhole inspections again, point repairs as needed as you see them come across in the review process, sewer linings, and annual reporting of all of these processes to the MWRD once a year. From 2000 to 2010, the long-term maintenance program continued. At this point is when we began ranking all of the sewers as we collected a majority of the data from the system and what condition the sewers were all in. You know, find cracks, found sewers that necessitated excavation for repairs because there was potential for collapse or potential for sewer stoppage. We compiled all that data, put it into spreadsheet form, and ranked all the sewers based on what we reviewed through all the televising and through all the inspections. And from that, we came up with a revised long-term program that began with the high-risk sewers. In 2013, the MWRD began a new sewer program called IICP. The IICP program was an update of that ICAP program with, again, the intention of reducing infiltration into their system. The MWRD and IEPA still saw flooding out of their systems with untreated water going into rivers and streams in the lake, and they still wanted to reduce that even further. So all municipalities got together, they created an advisory technical panel. I participated in that as a representative of the township, which gave us some insight on the program as it evolved, as well as being able to give input into that program. That program evolved into the Article 8 that the MWRD included in their updated watershed management ordinance in 2014. 2015, they implemented the program. The MWRD requires ongoing long-term maintenance as well as short-term maintenance as a part of that updated program. Within that program, the MWRD short-term program includes ongoing maintenance as well as private sector program to help reduce the infiltration on some of the private sector services. Some of our ongoing sanitary services that we provide also include permit reviews when plan reviews come into the township on occasion for a new house or a disconnection from a building that needs a service disconnection. We review that, as well as we coordinate with any contractors when there's calls, when there's any issues with any backups or any overflows to sewers. Very rare. I've only seen it in probably 3 or 4 times in the almost 20 years that I've worked on the system with the township. Here's a few examples of some photos. On the left is a clay sewer. You can see there's an offset joint there that's looking down the pipe where you would get some infiltration or possibility of further deterioration of the sewer. The upward arrow there is where a crack is in there. On the right photo is the sewer after it's lined. That's the liner inside of the sewer after it's already cured. On the left is a sewer repair tee. This is when they go in and they have to fix a tee or a break. This one happened to be at a service. On the right there, you can kind of see where the red arrow is, where there was a break within the clay pipe. On the left was a replacement of a frame and lid with a gasketed lid in the gutter line of the street where you would get some infiltration. That was replaced. On the right is a manhole that was grouted. That's, again, to reduce infiltration. The entire interior of the manhole is sealed up. This is an example of the plan set that we put together for the last sewer lining program back in 2020. Moving forward for 2021, we're going to continue with our manhole inspection program. We're going to propose sewer point repairs and CIPP lining of approximately 4,800 linear feet of sewer. We have 3 point repairs that we're aware of that have to be made within the system presently. We're planning for a September bid publishing, a October bid opening, and construction to proceed in October once it's approved by the board, as well as doing our own due diligence with a contractor and checking references and whatnot. We'll also be preparing the 2021 annual infiltration report for the MWRD and review any sanitary permits as they come about. Just our contact information for the company here, and thank you all for listening. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Mark, how much more do we have to complete to be able to completely have sort of?
We've lined about 67% of the system, so we have about 33% left.
And when would that likely be completed?
Probably in a 2-year time frame.
Two-year time frame?
2-year or 2 iterations.
Okay.
We haven't hit it every year with the lining program. It tends to run in multiple $100,000s to run through the
Right.
program. Sometimes we wait a few years for it to for the reserves to build
Right.
back up and then approach it.
And is the, and we're lining all the mileage. This does not include the connection to the home, does it, though, or?
No, what they do is they run the liner through, and then they use it's a robot on a little car that runs through that they do the videoing with as well. And it has a tool that's akin to, say, a Dremel, and it goes in there and it opens up the services after the fact. So
If there's a problem with the connection to the home, is that the homeowner's responsibility then, or?
it is the homeowner's responsibility. That's what the township has approached it. If we were going to do a full sewer replacement, there may be some discussion. Some municipalities will run that out to at least the property line as far as a replacement, and then have a homeowner take it from there with the services. And some just replace the main line and just at the T.
So at this particular stage, if a homeowner has a problem and we have to, if the problem is, if the problem is on the easement, then if it's not hitting, if it's still not in our main line, he still has to pay for that, or do we cover everything up to his, up to his?
Typically, if it's within the service all the way to the main line, what the township has historically done is that's the homeowner's responsibility for their service. The township has only maintained the main line.
Okay, and then on the main line, is the way we're lining it, is that meet the standards of the municipalities around us too?
Correct. It's a very similar process that most of the municipalities around are going through.
All right, and we're connected with the, I mean, are we a separate standalone system, or are we connected to some of the other municipalities?
The system is connected generally to the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. There's 10 connections the township has in various locations. We are very much, the system is in various areas throughout the township. There's area, Mount Prospect,
That's right,
Arlington
yeah.
Heights, that kind of go towards one interceptor. But even with that, there's four connections there. There's a few on Central. There's a few that go to Lincoln. There's other areas that go to other interceptors, the Oakton Corridor or over along Higgins. But the system is very, in very different areas throughout the township.
Okay. And is-
Unlike a municipality who may have an entire system for their municipality, which encompasses miles upon miles, but it's very much throughout the entire municipality.
Is all of our territory concurrent too? Do we have separate pieces, or are all our sewers in a concurrent piece?
They're in different areas. They're not all interconnected.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, anywhere from over in Arlington Heights, just south of Central, to over at Higgins and Bussey, to over along Oakton, east of I-90. They're all separate areas.
I suppose that got started, what were at that time, what were the unincorporated areas, I assume? And as they got annexed, we kept the sewers.
Correct.
Or whatever, however that worked out, we ended up keeping the sewers rather than the municipalities taking responsibility for them.
Correct, for areas, yes.
Okay.
All right.
Is there any other
else?
questions? I think it's important to note that, once again, the sewer budget is a user fee budget. It's not, it's funded by the users of the system, it's not a general tax, not a property tax item, per se.
Yeah, the one question I would have is, like, when you were speaking of, like, how they line the pipes.
The sewer lining, yes.
And as well as the epoxy, like an artery gets tighter and tighter. So percentage-wise, how much, when you put the epoxy or the liner in, how much does that close it off? Because it's a pipe and it's going to be slower.
Certainly. That's a good question.
Percentage-wise.
The liner is a fabric, as I said. When it cures, it's probably less than 1/8 of an inch. You're also dealing with old clay pipe and joints where the liners essentially, it's a smoother product when you're done. So your actual flow rates can improve because you're running through a smoother product than the old clay pipe. It tends to be more porous. Over time, it deteriorates, chips. So that flow factor through there is improved with the liner.
And what is the expected life expectancy of that liner?
The liner is expected to last somewhere around 50 years,
Okay.
similar to the life expectancy of the original installations.
Okay.
When the clay pipes, when they begin to displace, or you begin to lose the connection, so to speak, those aren't readjusted when we do this. We just create a smoother.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so you still would have an area there where the flow is constricted to some degree by the.
You may have a little bit of a reduction through that. In a 8-inch liner, 10-inch liner, 12-inch pipes, size diameter, you're talking a 1/4 inch you're taking out of that overall pipe diameter. And most of the sewers are not running at full capacity that are within the system. They run at full capacity if there happens to be stormwater infiltration into them.
During the process of normal maintenance to those, is there any instances where a cleaning interferes with the liner, in a sense that, I mean, if you're cleaning, doing a maintenance on it and trying to get anything that's restricting it, anything that you use to maintain to clean it, does it affect the liner and the epoxy in any way that you have to redo it?
As far as like household chemicals, nothing it impacts it any differently than it would impact, say, a PVC pipe, which is another product that's used for sewer as well.
Okay.
I was thinking about the same thing, like, you know, you can take like a router and you can clean out your, you know, your,
Yeah, they use
Drain.
routers in them after
So,
the fact if
but-
there
but-
happens
but
to
is-
be a
is-
That's what I
clog.
was getting to.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
that's
yeah.
what I was
Mechanical
wondering.
means are used all the time after the fact. When they're running the cameras after the fact, a jetter is often used to pre-clean them, so they do that ahead of the televising before they put the cameras in.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for having me again.
Thanks, Mark.
thank you.
All right, and we have a presentation by our food pantry. These are the presentations where we're trying to give the board sort of an update in terms of what we're doing, how we're doing, how the different departments are operating, and what their current situations are, and just, I think it's important to keep the board informed as much as possible. And we'll try to do these on an annual basis.
Well, good evening. My name is Kaylee Tomasic, and I am the food pantry manager here at the Township. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the pantry and everything we do. To start, we are a client's choice pantry. We've been operating with this model for about a year now. It's where our residents can come and pick the items they want based on their preferences and their needs. We offer a wide variety of canned goods, fresh produce, meat and dairy, as well as personal hygiene and household cleaners. And then we even have specialty foods such as gluten-free and vegetarian options. Our clients are welcome to shop the pantry once a month or twice a month for those with 4 or more in the household. Clients need ID and current utility bill to prove that they live in the township. No income requirement is necessary. And then our operational hours are currently Tuesday through Thursdays, 9:30 to 12 and 1 to 3:30, with experimental evening hours going on right now, Tuesday evenings from 4 to 7 to try to accommodate those that can't come during working hours. Turning towards our monthly statistics right now, we have experienced an increase in pantry visits over the past few years. As of July of 2021, we have serviced an average of 354 households a month, compared to this time last year, which was at an average of 326 households a month. With that monthly average, we have serviced over 2,400 families this year so far, and are projecting to serve well over 4,000 families by the end of the year, which will be an increase since the peak of the pandemic last year. This shows that even though people are starting to go back to work right now, there is still an ever-growing need of food. And at this point, I would like to say that the pantry would not even be this effective if it wasn't for my wonderful team of volunteers who have taken the time out of their lives to help me run and organize the pantry. Oh, I forgot to go to the next slide. Here's the past couple of years of the food pantry. 2021 is over 2,400. Last year, for the whole year was, I lost my place. Last year was almost 4,000 families for the whole year, and 2019 was 2,700. So there's been quite an increase over the past couple years. For those interested in donating to the pantry, we have a few options for people. We accept food donations and also personal hygiene and household items. We also encourage monetary donations in the form of cash, checks, and gift cards. We are currently partnered with the Greater Chicago Food Depository, from which we order and restock the pantry twice a month. And through them, we are also partnered with Meier, Mariano's, and Panera, in which we collect from them on a weekly basis, several times during the week. Sometimes when there's a low stock on certain items, such as flour, sugar, I use the monetary donations to then purchase the food from a Meier program called B2B, where we get it at the wholesale value. So we are never in shortage of food. Every month, we post on our Facebook and social media about what we're in need of most, and we collect donations Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. And that just about sums up the pantry.
Well, just right off the bat, I want to say thank you very much for the work you all do. I think this is one of the more visible services, and I think one of the more important services that we provide to the community. And your team and you have been extraordinarily efficient and effective in carrying this out. And we really, I think I can speak for the board in saying that we're really pleased and proud and happy about the job you're doing. One question is, how is the evening hours going? Is it being used? Has there been demand?
Not a huge demand as I was expecting. We have a handful of people right now, but right now we're doing it every Tuesday, and I think in a couple months we'll let time and word spread a bit more, but I think we might be able to cut it down to once a month,
Okay.
and
Is
then expand as needed.
Is it because it's not as well known at this particular time, maybe, that people don't know that it's open in the evenings?
Quite possibly. There's no way to know really.
Yeah.
We post it all the time on social media. I believe it's going to be in the next newsletter, so.
I would give it, I'd like to give it time to see.
Oh, absolutely.
To make sure that the word gets around, people become more and more familiar with knowing that it's open. But, yeah, at some point, we'll have to sit down and revisit and see if it makes sense to continue.
Absolutely.
Any other questions regarding the food pantry?
Yeah, I saw on the, for the money donations.
Mm-hmm.
So you take, when you say gift card donations, do you use that?
People donate restaurants.
And then you distribute them
We distribute them
back to the clients?
back to the clients as needed, usually around the holiday season, I believe.
Most of the gift cards that she deals with are ones where they come from a grocery store.
Oh, so then you
Oh,
go
yeah,
ahead
most of the time it's
and use
grocery
it there at
stores.
the
The
grocery
other
store.
ones that would get gift cards, they're just a general donation, and those usually go to social services for clients that are in need of whatever that specific category is.
Okay.
So it's not Ruth's Chris or Jameson or something?
TJ Maxx.
It's not a fancy steakhouse, is what you're saying. Yeah.
I was wondering how many volunteers you have and like around how often or how long they each.
I have about a team of 24 volunteers right now, and also a part-timer who helps me out every week. And most of them are once every other week. That was
Okay.
back during COVID restrictions and trying to keep safe, and some have opted to come every week. I have one lovely woman who comes twice a week.
Okay.
And they've just been a fantastic team.
So they come like half the day or a couple hours?
Oh,
or-
yeah, it's about 3 hours a shift.
Okay, thanks.
So that's what it is currently then, what you
Correct,
have?
at the moment, yeah. I
Okay.
have a lot of people that want to volunteer, so I'm trying to spread out so at least they can come every so
Okay.
often.
That's great.
And the food truck that's used, we're using that to pick up
Yeah, I
supplies.
use that for all my donation pickups, Meyer and Mariano's.
If an organization did a collection, could you take the food truck like to a church or a company and pick up the food?
Absolutely, as long as I get prior notice so I can make room in the schedule.
Okay, thanks.
Does any of the produce that you get come from any farmers markets?
Not sure about farmer's market, but definitely from the community itself. From the Elk Grove Community Garden, they've been donating produce like crazy this season, and then also from individuals with their own
Home
gardens.
gardens? Okay, all right.
That would be, I don't know what's left over after like the Mount Prospect Market
There,
Farms.
yeah, that's why I
Yeah,
asked.
okay.
My fridge is full of tomatoes and cucumbers right now.
Yeah,
That's what's in season?
That,
yeah.
Yeah,
Is there any further questions?
nope.
No.
Keep up the good work, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Nice job.
All right, I think our next presentation is Renee with the youth services.
All right, hello, everyone. My name is Renee Dorn, and I am the Program Coordinator for the Youth Services Department. I've served in this role for over 20 years and have been with the Township even longer than that. As a parent, I have seen firsthand many of the challenges that kids have to endure. Pulling from that experience, along with what I've learned from working with kids of different ages and different settings, I've been able to help the department adapt and create services that are offered to the community. I've also witnessed firsthand the positive impact that it's had on the youth that we've served. We offer a variety of programs that are designed to help individuals learn life skills through group interactions. It's a learning by doing versus seeing, and it is powerful in its effect. Using a strength-based approach and initiatives or activities as a vehicle, we challenge our group members to practice life skills, solving problems, accepting responsibility, asking for help, supporting their teammates, all for the purpose of transferring this learning so that they can be successful in other areas of their lives, at home, with family, at school, at work. Now, normally, when I explain what I do, I invite group members to participate in an initiative or to be able to experience it. We're not going to have time to do that today. I can see you're all very sad about that. But to give you an example of what it might look like, I would invite the group to create a circle and facilitate a activity where it might be a get to know you, right? Using a prop like a ball, I would have the person say the name of who they were going to throw it to across the circle, and then this pattern would continue until everyone has received and thrown the ball. During the activity, of course, I would make it perhaps a little bit more complex. I might add a second ball, or I might time the event. And the reason for that, it's not so much the experience, but it's the debrief. So afterwards, we would discuss the complexities of the challenge. I might ask the group, did anyone have a hard time juggling multiple things? Did anyone drop the ball? And then from there, take it a step further and talk about how that relates to everyday life, at school, at home, with families. And how do you handle that? Do you quit? Do you give up? Do you try again? How would you like to handle it if you weren't handling it the way you would want to? So again, strengthening their future muscle. We had a youth program called Challenge, which started in the 80s. And it was developed to give youth a chance to experience outdoor adventures. We used experiential learning trips, taking kids away from their home, often for the very first time, so that they could experience things like camping, hiking, skiing, canoeing. All of these trips were very valuable, and I'm sure the kids that have gone on them have remembered them. I have a girl who is now 29, and last year reached out to me. She was one of the first members who went through the Challenge program, still in the area, still remembers how it impacted her. So in addition to that, in the beginning, we had a drop-in center. We had outreach workers who would go into the community, into the schools, and forge relations with individuals, inviting them back to our drop-in centers so that they could hang out in a safe environment and interact with their peers. Then we built the Teams course. I think it was around 1987. And we centered on what we could do with groups through a Teams course challenge, knowing that kids like doing. Youth Services has always been responsive to the community and opened the doors to a lot of families, a lot of schools, and a lot of community members. We evolved from the office to the challenge course, to the community. And why was that change? Because the clinicians and I, for years we were youth and family services, and the clinicians and I worked closely together and decided that a good vehicle for change with a young person isn't necessarily sitting in a room talking to a therapist one-on-one, but instead participating in group challenges with their peers, learning life skills and practicing it in a safe environment. An example of this was our friendship camp. It was specifically designed on-site at our challenge course for kids who were on the autism spectrum disorder. And as you may know, kids with ASD have a hard time reading social cues or understanding how their behavior impacts other people. So we created a group through the challenge program where we could teach social skills and give the kids an opportunity to practice that so that they could manage their everyday life and be successful. In fact, that program was so successful, we had a pragmatic issue in that the schools wanted us to come in and offer it to multiple grade levels and multiple classes within the grade levels. So it was an efficient program to run. We had to figure out how to adapt and meet those changes, so we did. We went ahead and paired our portable activities, our portable initiatives, with the curriculum the school had in order to give the kids a positive experience, but also to tie in the state learning standards, which is something the schools have to adhere to, and also address the social emotional needs of the students. Not only do I provide programs to schools, but I think it's important to share with you some of the other community groups that we offer programs to. Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Children Advocacy Center. Sometimes I'll go into libraries and do parenting or caregiver seminars. Anywhere where I can continue to use initiatives, activities, games as a vehicle to make conversation happen, to work on goals that are requested by whoever sets up the group. For the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, I can tie activities into a badge that they might earn, kind of a skill building activity, if you will. So, as I've mentioned, we have always been strength-based and continue to push positive, no matter what the challenge is. I will say, during the consolidation to one building, we were put up in a temporary space due to some construction delays, but even there, we utilized the space on site to create quality programs. In addition, we went into the schools during the school day and worked alongside teachers, social workers, psychologists, creating groups, changing lives of individuals. Our second challenge that recently impacted us, not just my department, but other departments, was COVID. We had a partnership with many of the community members, many of the schools where we would go in and do programming in person. Well, when everything changed to e-learning, that was put on hold. So how we're meeting this slide. I think this is important because the groups that we were running on site, they included our Girls Empowerment Group, our Social Skills Group. We continue to be responsive and meet those changing needs. We transitioned all of our groups online, which I have to be honest, it was a bit of a learning curve, technology-wise for me, creating Bitmojis. But also, as a parent, knowing that kids spend so much time online, so much screen time during the day, how can we make it so it's worth their time, it's interactive, and keep the attention? Well, I'm proud to say that most of our groups were almost full, if not full at capacity, when we transitioned virtually. Additional outlet that came from this is we recognized that the kids had a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress around e-learning and COVID and going back. So we created some new groups, managing emotions, dealing with anxiety, mindfulness activities, again, supporting the youth. This past summer, I'm proud to announce that we once again started running groups in person. Not only was it well received by parents, but also the kids. I think a lot of the social skills were lost a bit during the online learning, so practicing sharing space with each other. I believe 3 of you, Vince and Sue Ellen and Dale, happened to be walking out of a meeting when one of our groups was taking place, so you got to come in and experience firsthand some of the things that we do with the kids. Recently, we also were able to go back into the schools. The picture here is from Holmes Junior High, which allowed us to come in and work with their incoming 6th graders for a orientation day. And it was nice to just get back in person, work with the kids, still staying safe with COVID protocols, but I think this year is going to be a good year. I think we're going to start to transition back, and looking forward to what the future brings. All right, definitely thank you for your time and attention. If you have any questions, I'm not sure if I'm over on my time, but you're more than welcome to ask, or my contact information is up there.
Yeah, a couple questions, and I'll just run these through, and then you can
Sure.
maybe tie them together. You have independent programs that you run here at the township. How do you reach out? How do you make people aware of those? And who tends to participate in them? Then you have groups like the Boy Scouts. Do they reach out to you and say this is what they need? Or do you reach out to them and say, here's what I have? And then the schools, I know you've developed relationships with them over time. Once again, do they come to you and say, here's the programs we need? Or do you go out to them and say, here's what I'm doing right now, can you use this? And I know the schools actually have had their budgets cut significantly in terms of programs like this. So you have the independent, you have the groups, you have the schools, and how do we interact with all these different groups? And finally, you obviously have individuals you use to support your programs. If you could explain a little bit on that.
Absolutely. So the nice thing about being here as long as I have is I've been able to build relations with individuals both in the community and at the school. They're aware of our programs, but they're also aware that we're very adaptable, very flexible based on the needs of the community. It might be the case that every other year I'll send out a 3 or 4 question survey through SurveyMonkey just to take a pulse of what are the needs and how can we support them. To answer your question about outside groups, oftentimes they'll reach out to me, whether they see something on social media or in the newsletter, or they hear it from another troop leader. It seems as though once I work with one Girl Scout troop, I'm getting multiple calls from other Girl Scout troops, which I welcome. And if time allows, last year we were very creative and we met in like church parking lots or outside space to kind of facilitate their needs and their goals, but also be COVID friendly.
And with the schools, it's...
Yep, so for the schools, I reach out to social workers, psychologists, special ed teachers. We have a list, the youth or the adult and family counseling department and I, of our contacts, because oftentimes they refer for counseling, and it could be the case where it's a wraparound service where they also might be a fit for one of my groups. I have brochures of the different groups that we're offering, states the dates and the times, so I'll farm that out electronically to them. And again, we push it out through social media, Twitter, Facebook. So oftentimes it's someone who's been in the group and then they tell a friend. I will tell you some of the kids that have been in the group, they started when they were 7, and one individual is 15. And they've been in every session. So I'll often scratch my head and ask them, I'm like, why do you keep coming back? But they have fun. We create an environment where they can just show up, be themselves, take some risks, and learn some life skills. So we're very interactive, we're very approachable, but providing that safe environment allows kids to practice being social, if that's one of their goals or the parents' goals. It allows them to practice these life skills, which will help them even the next day at school.
In your program, the programs are fluid, they'll change from year to year, or you'll do an ADHD, and that'll be the, if there's an emphasis on that, and then maybe that will be de-emphasized, or will you drop programs and add other programs, or?
Great question. So probably about 15 years ago, the ADHD camps that I ran were always filled. And then a year or two later, I'm not sure if people started taking meds or managing their ADHD in a different avenue, but there wasn't a need to run them because I didn't have the enrollment. It then transitioned more to social skills, kids who lack making friends, keeping friends, just those general skills that some of us are born into a brain that makes it easy. Others, it doesn't, for whatever reason, they have those deficits. So I don't pretend to be good at everything. I try to educate myself and do as much research as I can, but I also, as you had referred to, rely on a team of individuals and use them as a vehicle of experts to create groups, create outlets for kids that respect their time but still meet the needs of the parents.
Could you explain a little bit for the board, the people that you have kind of on your team?
Mm-hmm.
Who are they? How do we work with them? Mm-hmm. Are they paid? Are they not paid? If you could explain it.
Yep, absolutely. So way back when, in the beginning, there used to be a team of 9 of us. And since then, and that was when we were adult and family counseling, since then has evolved and shifted over the years. We went from having a full-time director and a part-time coordinator and part-time permanent facilitators to now just me as a full-time person. And I absolutely love what I do. I wouldn't be here as many years as I have been if I didn't. But I surround myself with people who are very good at what they do. They often wear different hats of the school day because I can't offer them full-time positions. Maybe they're a social worker, maybe they're an educator or a counselor, but then they carve out the time based on the need, based on the groups that we have, and facilitate alongside with me. So sometime that's at a school, sometime that's on site here. I can tell you at one point at Friendship Junior High, we were doing a bullying prevention program for all 6th, all 7th, and all 8th graders. And it was a 6-week program. So it was pretty intense, but we had a team of us that went in and rolled out the program to each of the grade levels, and it was very beneficial. We got great feedback. So sometimes the needs change. Sometimes schools are interesting as far as how they approach the type of program. For example, the bullying prevention program, the schools would want it would be great, but then they're like, Renee, we're getting so many calls now about reporting bullying. And so it's that double-edged sword, right? We're educating people about the types of bullying and the different roles, and so knowledge is power. And so now they're starting to advocate and stand up for themselves and report it. But that could be a double-edged sword sometime for the school. So I always tell them, I don't care what you call the program, call it an empowerment program, but we're teaching skills so that the kids can navigate their day, manage their emotions, and be the best that they can be.
If you believe there's a need for a program like bullying, let's say, for instance, do you develop the program, or, I mean, you gather ideas from resources, develop yourself, then bring your team, and they teach, and you teach them, or you develop your curriculum, or do you have them come in and you all work together in developing the curriculum?
A little bit of both. The nice thing about our program is we draw from several sources. And depending on the needs of the community, for example, if I go into Rupley Elementary School, the need for bullying is more physical in nature. But if I go to Claremont Elementary, it's more cyber bullying that we focus on. And it's just the demographics. So we tailor all of our programs based on the needs of the school, and we set it up in advance. But over the years, I've drawn from so many sources that we have it down to a science and use experiential learning as a springboard to make that conversation have. Sometimes it can get uncomfortable and we take the oxygen out of the room for the bully, but our goal is to give the kids the tools that they need in order to advocate for themselves, in order to be successful during the day. So we do.
And the schools are normally elementary schools is what they are?
Can be elementary, junior high, or high school.
High school too?
Yep, we go all the way up to 18.
But is the focus more on the elementary, or yeah?
It's a great question. The focus has been more of elementary. I do believe the high school is an underserved population. I reach out to the counselors, the social workers, even assistant principals and principals, but it's one of those, you can't force your programs on anyone. You can just give them the information, and if there's a need, let them know that we at the Township are here to help serve it.
And how many part-time people do you have, and are they skilled? Are you use them for certain areas where they have an expertise, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's changed a little bit with COVID, because I lost several of our facilitators just because of the lack of work that I could offer them. At one time, we had about a dozen facilitators who would work with us. And again, it depends on the needs of the program, and they all wore different hats, whether they were teachers, counselors, therapists. Some of the best individuals that I've had don't have any letters behind their name, but that ability to connect with kids, to connect with youth, to build that rapport and change lives was huge. So I screen the facilitators based on the knowledge that they come with, but also who they connect better with. Are they better with elementary population or a junior high, or do I need a bilingual facilitator? That's how I draw from the pool that I have.
Is there any other questions for Renee?
Yeah, how do you just purely functional, you mentioned the golf road and then your interim, how do you like the new building? Is it working out for you guys?
I will say the space in here, especially this summer, was fabulous. Very open, very airy. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous about getting any marks on the wall because sometimes kids are kids, right? And when we're doing things, they like moving around, and we're inside and we're outside, and if it's raining, we just work with the conditions that we have, but then I was conscious to track the mud in. This space is ideal though, because we can also utilize the conference room when we do our processing with kids, or we need a smaller setting just to kind of take that conversation further for even part of the group.
I don't have a question, is much more of a statement. I share in your enthusiasm here. I think that what you're doing is wonderful.
Thank you.
The short little time that I had here with Dale and Sue Ellen, I could definitely see the difference that you're making, along with the gentleman that was here that particular day, working with the mousetrap and the rubber band.
Don't tell George about the mouse traps, okay, Vince?
But
No injuries.
for somebody that grew up in the Park District, rec houses and the YMCA's, we could have used you back then. I think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it, and I agree. I think growing up as a kid, just having a safe space to ask some questions, to be part of a group, to listen and learn is huge. So, yeah, appreciate that the township supports it and we can offer a variety of programs.
I was going to say, at one of the schools I worked at, they came and did the bullying program, and I still remember the role playing and the different roles, and I was like, oh, I never thought of that, and
Yeah.
very impressed, and I think we did a certain grade that we had issues with, but it was super helpful,
Awesome, thanks.
so.
Any other questions for Renee?
Yeah, well, I have a comment too, and I'm just going to reiterate what Vince just said. Like, it's people like you who make a difference, and thank you.
Very much appreciated, thanks. And nice to meet those of you who I haven't met in person, so thanks, Greg. Awesome. All right.
Thank you, Renee.
You're welcome, I appreciate your time, guys.
Just a couple things for the board is, I met with all the department heads starting this year, and I'm familiar with a lot of things they're doing, but these meetings with the department heads was very enlightening too, in terms of some things I wasn't aware of that just sort of happened. And that's part of the reason why I'm asking them to come in and talk to you all, because as the board, you have the responsibility for the funding and the budget that's set up to support these programs. And to make the decisions you need to make, I think you need to be aware of what they're doing and how they're doing it. Otherwise, we're doing it blind. And so I think you'll find as we go along and we have these presentations, and I'll have each one of them do it every year as an update, that there are some tremendous things we're doing. We're filling a lot of holes in the community that aren't being provided by anyone else. And in some cases, we will need to look at other ways that we can improve or expand these programs through facilities or people or whatever the case may be, but within the financial responsibilities that we have too for managing this. But for instance, one of the things Renee talked about is, she has trouble getting kids here to participate in the programs. If she goes there, that's one thing, to the school or to wherever the Boy Scouts are having their meeting with her. But if they have in the program here, she has trouble getting them here and asked about, can we provide transportation? Well, unfortunately, we can't do that anymore because of the liability issues. We've become a very litigious society, and that puts a handicap on us in those ways. So some of the things she talked about we did in the past, off-site, events and things like that, unfortunately, we can't do for liabilities issues. So we have to find other ways to be able to make these programs available, to make these programs as valuable as they were in the past. And that's why I think it's important for us to always be willing to give them the resources and the ability to be flexible and to make changes as they need to. And that may need changes in their staff, that may mean changes in their facilities that they're able to use. And I think that's we need to keep in mind, not just for youth services, but for adult and family counseling, for the food pantry, for all these things. And the food pantry is a good example. Look at how we went from the food pantry we had before. We're bringing bags out to people. And as the needs change within our community and the demographics change in our community, we made an adjustment to the way we do provide food pantry services. And that now is a much more efficient and much more impactful vehicle for providing food services than we ever had before. Those are things we have to keep in mind for other departments, and listen closely when they come in, because you'll hear in there the things they're kind of advocating for a little bit too, or where their problems are. Paul and I are constantly meeting on this. We're constantly in communication with the department heads. Everything can't be done at once. Mm-hmm. All these changes can't happen at once, but there's a lot of things that we're looking at and considering.
So there's to go back to your point, there's a liability issue with bringing the kids here.
To drive them.
Even if there's a fund for a school bus service or something?
Yeah, anytime that we take responsibility for bringing them here, it becomes a liability for us in terms of being in that vehicle. And it's a shame. I mean, it's a shame, but our attorneys have made it very clear, because that was one of the things we explored, particularly for some of the families that don't have the resources. Maybe both mom and dad are working and they're not around and they can't drive them here. Maybe they have one car and the father's out work. So how do you get them here? And that's where we have to be creative in terms of how we can provide these services to the full range of kids in our township.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with, I think it is a shame that we can't do that from the liability standpoint, but the good thing is that the services are available.
Yes.
If they can get here and to do that. So
No, and that's
we've gotten halfway there.
Yeah.
And then the other part is the liability standpoint, so.
We have to be flexible, and we have to be willing to change and to adjust to the new environments that we work in, just like her programs adjust based on where the focus is.
Right.
In terms of need from the schools, from the groups, even from what she sees herself. And she's working by herself with a group of part-time people that help her. And, at some point, that has to be revisited probably too. But at this point, I think just another example of a unique program in terms of the youth services, and also the food pantry is very unique in terms of what we provide there too.
Absolutely.
Last time you heard about social services, and that's an area where the demand for what we do is increasing exponentially. So, okay, let's move forward then. We have the reports, the assessor's report. Connie was not able to make it tonight. She had she left or submitted a written report. You can take a look at that. If you have any questions, she said you're free to reach out to her, and she can provide any follow-up on any of these items. Then the clerk's report.
Okay, I did a written report also. There are no current FOIA requests or filings this month. I did mention in the report the agency grant committee. Since I wrote the report, we did finish our new grant application, so I did give everyone a copy tonight. So we hope to get these out early September, so we can have the process start a lot earlier and be able to interview more of the people in person. And that's my report.
That's your report? Okay. Any questions for the clerk?
Nope.
No. Okay, I'm really glad we've got this agency review committee up and running. I think this is an area where we have not been as focused in terms of what we're doing, how we're doing it, and making sure that our monies that we're providing these organizations we're getting the biggest bang for a buck. So I think this is really going to be a positive for us going forward in terms of our ability to provide quality, needed, and efficient services. Okay, supervisor's report here. Couple things here. Paul's been working very hard with the Cook County Sheriff's Office in terms of addressing some of the issues that Heather brought into us regarding the Rapallo area. We're making some progress there, and he'll be kept informed as that goes on. Paul and the Sheriff's Office have been in discussions about additional policing, about signage, and about maybe getting the Sheriff's Office, Cook County Sheriff's Office, along with the village in a meeting with us and the residents. There's only so much we can do, but at least we can help facilitate some of these discussions. On remediation, we're still at a point where Elk Grove Village is pursuing an effort with the IEPA to be able to move forward and either, how would you say, renew or get a new NFR without having to do any further remediation. And what this is based on is that the contamination levels in the area and back are not that significantly different than the contamination levels that existed in 2000 when they got the first NFR. So they're pursuing this. They were denied. Now they're trying to get a reversal of that denial. Once we get the results, once they hear back from the IEPA on the second request, if it does not go through, then I'm going to push heavily that they just start with the remediation. Then we don't want to wait any longer. And we're at a point now where unless they get a quick response and it says that, no further remediation is needed, we aren't going to be able to get to the challenge course and the bike safety this fall. Yeah. It'll be pushed off the next spring. So we're in a kind of a wait and see with the village and the IEPA, and from that we'll be able to see whether we can move forward without the remediation, but with an NFR, or whether remediation will be required. And then their responsibility to remediate it, or if they drag their feet, we'll remediate it and charge them. Okay, on the capital projects, Paul, is the roof going to be done this fiscal year? The repairs to the roof in the back?
And we haven't decided that.
Okay, all right.
Waiting for the information back from the architect, remember, for knowing what we have to do about that.
Right. All right, so there's several issues, several capital improvement issues outstanding. There needs to be some repairs to the roof in the back section of the building. If we do that, there's a couple other items that would maybe make sense to do with it. For instance, a bathroom in the back that would be able to be used by kids or people on the challenge course and the bike safety course. you know, so there's some considerations there in terms of when we do this, does it make sense to do that? Does it more cost-effective in that regard? Also, along with that, we are trying to clean up and the new bike safety space, not only in terms of the actual room itself, but also cleaning out some of the old bikes and some of the things that have built up, you know, like in your attic, builds up in your attic. This is the same type things build up there. And Sandy has been given the mission of getting that cleaned up, then providing us with how she'd like it laid out. At this point, the youth services is sharing that room. We probably will move youth services out of there, provide a locker for them in the back room for storing their stuff, so they're not on top of each other and they can work separately. We also then obviously have the challenge course and the bike safety course that we want to get moving on as soon as we can. And the other one, other item that I don't know if we'll be able to address it next year, but we would like to replace the fence, at least on the east side. That is falling down. Our neighbors have to deal with that, and we would like at least to take care of that side if we can. The west side faces ComEd property, and we're not as concerned about that. It's adequate, and we're not dealing with residents on that side. So we'd probably do this in two parts if we did. But this side would probably be the important one. In terms of personnel, we're in the process right now of interviewing a new clinical director for adult and family services. Dean, as you know, has been working part-time and trying to help with the transition to a new clinical director. Right now, the three things he had done was got job descriptions for his department. He had been working with Jocelyn Center, which is a contract with them, which would allow us to have on Zoom or how would you say, what's the word?
Closed circuit.
Yeah, closed circuit psychiatric services as well as med management. What we're doing right now when people come into family services and they need a psychiatric review, they need a prescription for drugs, and then management of those drugs, we've been sending them to Kenneth Young. The backlog there is huge, 6 months in some cases. So this was a way that we could move and be able to more in control and move things through quicker. So Dean was working on the Jocelyn Center job descriptions and finding a replacement for himself. And we're interviewing an individual right now that I think we're feeling pretty positive about. Another thing we're reviewing right now, we're going through a lot of the old programs. Paul and I've gotten to know each other very, very well. The Community Empowerment Fund, we're going through the bylaws on that, and we're looking at maybe finding a way. We've talked to the attorney of bringing the Community Empowerment Fund a little bit more back under the wing of the township, rather as a strictly independent organization that we are working with. But I don't know if we're the relationship and the legal components of it are a little bit confusing. So we're working on that, and we'll give you an update on that as well too. I think the township will maybe a little bit more involved in terms of the membership of that board and in terms of our responsibilities to it. Then we've gone with the agency, agency grant committee. I'm also looking at some point, not too distant future, of establishing one other committee, which would be the Service Review and Improvement Committee. That would be a committee which would consist of elected official, probably a trustee, some staff members, and some citizens, a couple citizens. And that would be maybe a quarterly or 3 times a year, would look at the services that we're providing in several ways. One, is that service needed? 2, is the service, if it's needed, being efficiently and properly executed, or a change is needed? And then 3, are there any services that we're not providing that we should consider? And that would be a committee that looks just at services and just looks at what we're providing the community, and are our services meeting the needs of the community, both in terms of quality and in terms of what we're offering. And we'll get back to you on that, probably in the next month or so. Finally, I don't know, there's the MTA symposium, is that for elected officials? or
Everybody, yeah.
All elected officials?
Employees as well, and staff.
I'm sorry, could you, Sue Ellen, explain that a little bit?
Yeah, MTA, Metro Township Association. If you didn't get an email, we can forward it, but did everyone get an email? I think it's September 26th on a Saturday morning.
25th or 26th, I don't remember, yeah.
And it's all the local suburban townships, but you always get a lot of good information there and you can network. So if you can RSVP, if you can go to that.
I will
Be
be
great.
attending, and Connie's so far the two of us. It would be great if we had a trustee there as well, too. It's just a morning, I think it's like 8 to 1 or something like that. And there'll be several sessions, a legislative session talking about legislation that affects the township. There'll be some other speakers on other topics, and then there'll be the opportunity to network, at lunch and so forth. I think it's, where is it, Hanover? I think
Hanover,
Hanover's.
yes.
Hanover's hosting.
It is Hanover, yeah.
Yeah, yes,
Make a comment about that?
yeah.
On the invitations, when we send those out, if you guys would RSVP whether you're coming or not,
Either
that
way,
would be a big
okay.
help, because we have a window where we have to find out how many of you are going, create the check, have it signed, and get it to them, so they know how to prepare. So even if you're not going, and you know you're not going, just tell us, say no. It doesn't make, it doesn't make any difference. We just have to make sure that we account for everybody, because I don't want to send it in and then somebody comes the next day and says, oh, well, I want to go. Well, I mean, it just makes more work for us. Not that we can't do it, but we try to give you plenty of time to make the decision and give us an answer. So I've gotten 2 so far.
Okay.
Okay.
That sounds like me with one of my sons. I just say, would you please answer me at least when I text you or
You can
email
put
you?
me in there. I'll go.
Okay. All right, let Paul know if you want to participate. Is there a motion to approve the reports?
A second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. We don't have, let's see, we have we have no correspondence. We have one old item of business, the employee handbook revisions. Are there any questions on the employee handbook?
I don't have any.
Any, no suggestions, anything? Okay. In that case, I'm going to mention a couple things. Paul and I have been through this with our attorney several times, but I think we're at a point where we should approve this, but there are 2 amendments that I'd like to make. On page 12, under meal breaks, I would change on there in the second sentence, within the 1 hour, 30 minutes, that 1 hour, 30 minutes may be used as uninterrupted time. This uninterrupted time will be at the discretion of the employee's immediate supervisor, not your. And if at any time the employee is, not you are, unable to have a full-time hour, a full half-hour uninterrupted meal break as provided therein, then the employee is to immediately inform or notify their supervisor. And I'll give the specific instructions to, or word verbiage to the clerk for the minutes and to Paul for here. But basically, we're taking out the words you and your. It's just a grammatical.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just a
grammatical
wording- Just
change.
a wording thing, okay.
Yeah, there's the grammatical change on that. Also on page 31, under dress and grooming standards, the paragraph, the township maintains a visual, casual, relaxed environment. Once again, just a grammatical. It says here to wear appropriate clothing. It's clothes, not closing. So that change would be made. And then on page 35, under confidentiality and non-disclosure policy, the last part of that first paragraph would be, Let's see here. The continued success of the township's operations depends in part upon the maintenance of strict secrecy concerning the township's confidential information. Then the township considers all such confidential information to include, embrace, or constitute an integral part of its legal protectable information, dropping the confidential there, all of which constitutes the property of the township solely and exclusively. So once again, there's basically three, is it three? Yeah, three little bit more grammatical changes is what they are, but I wanted to put those out there just so when we approve this, those are included in. So I'll make a motion to approve us with those amendments. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Okay, make sure you guys are familiar with this, read through it, we'll get a finished copy. Make sure you've kind of gone through this, because there's some, it's important for you to know what we're expecting our employees to do. So I've had the motion to approve, the second, no discussion. Can I get a roll call?
Trustee Narodowski,
Aye.
trustee Keenley,
Aye.
trustee Woteki,
Aye.
trustee Dante,
Aye.
supervisor Bussie.
Aye. All right, there's no executive session matters. I think there's no further business. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
There's no one opposed, I know, so. We're adjourned.